if somebody's doing single bells, when do you know if you're ready to make that jump to double bells?
When do you know? This is my experience, and this is anecdotal, so there's nothing here. We do have some guidance, and we did an episode, How Long Is This Going to Take, where we get into adaptations. The two things that I would say you should wait for in order to begin using double bells. One, technical proficiency. The single bell skills, and we will talk about this, so we can kind of go into this a little bit now. Single bell skills are a lot more forgiving. You have the ability to rotate, to move a little bit, side to side. You've got the ability to lean. You just have more degrees of freedom, so to speak. And you can get away with a little bit. So if you are still mastering or even just working on basic competency with your single arm skills rather, may not be ready for double bells. May not. Sometimes, those double bells can be an effective teacher, especially of leg drive. So sometimes I will use them, but I'm looking for someone to be proficient with their single arm skills. And I'm also looking for someone to have spent some time with kettlebells to begin with and developed the proper elasticity. We talk about the capacity. You want to train the physical capacity. So that's the soft tissue, the tendons, the ligaments. Can you handle these ballistic jolts? Because if you cannot, then I don't think double bells are a great way to start.
Yeah.
So those would be my two criteria: technical proficiency, and then at least giving yourself 3 to 4 months, working with bells at or near the total systemic load that you're going to be using. If you've only used, a single 12 kilo bell, then I don't think doing double 16s is a good idea.
Yeah, that's true. I think you had this concept and you talked about double bells removing your escape hatches. Is that what you're kind of referring to there, or is there more to elaborate on that? Okay.
No, that's exactly what I'm referring to.
So all those little things that you would do, if you're dropping and your arms coming out as you're making room, that's a lot harder to do with double bells, or, just whatever the compensation might be that you haven't really figured out.
This goes into a broader fitness conversation, and this goes especially into kettlebell skills. There are a lot of ways to achieve a movement objective. So let's say we're taking the path of the snatch straight up. If we're looking at efficiency, and we define efficiency as using the least amount of energy, then you want a path that's as straight as possible. If I'm bringing my bell up, I've got a nice solid leg drive, my bell comes straight up the front of my body, overhead into lockout, boom, fantastic. If I want to create a stronger pull, and if I want to maintain a better path, then I'm going to want to bring my elbow straight down. Because if I let my elbow flare out, and if I do this internal rotation of the shoulder versus a pull down where I'm using my big lat muscle, it's going to be weaker. But let's say I don't have that range of motion. Let's say my joints don't really work the way I want them to work. Let's say I have a hard time getting overhead. Then this elbow flaring out is something, I can let the elbow flare out and I can lean to the side a little bit and then lean back in. And often those little micro movements, those leans, are designed to get around faulty joint mechanics, meaning my shoulders are gunked up because I've been pressing too much, or I have skipped my warm up, or I've got an old injury. So with single bells, you can do a lot to wiggle around things. Sometimes it's intentional. Let's say, let's get away from ballistics for a second, and we're talking about a press. You might want to lean overhead because you're lowering the moment arm with leaning over. You're actually making the bell easier to press. So you can go overhead, you can lean a little bit, and then lean back in once you pass that sticking point, which is why it's, for many people, it's, you can press one double 48 or 148, but 2 48s is like, whoa, that's a lot, because your form has to be so much tighter. You don't have the escape hatches, you don't have the lean. So whether it's intentional or you're trying to work around a joint limitation, you have the ability to move your torso and rotate it. Let's say you're lacking rotation in the joint, you can rotate your entire body. You can rotate through the hips. We see it all the time with the snatch.
Yeah.
So you have these little escape hatches kind of built into your single bell skills. Well, guess what? You can't do that, at least not to the same degree anyway. You can do a little bit, because sometimes you'll see a little, one hip than the other. It'll be like a little bit of a wobble, but you can't get away with it to the same degree. It just won't work. So your double bell skills have to be tighter than your single bell skills, or they just won't happen. And even if they're both really tight, you're going to be developing a completely different stimulus.